And I'm Sawyer. And you're listening to Our House, A to Z.
Okay, welcome back to Our House.
Hey. Do you feel like you have a new theme song yet for Our House?
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to write it myself.
You do?
Do you remember the one? You remember the woman that makes the announcements on Grease?
Ding, ding, ding.
That's what we need.
The xylophone?
The xylophone, yeah.
I like that.
It's like a little toy xylophone that sits on the desk.
I think that's a great idea.
I'm going to get that out and start doing our own little chime.
I don't even remember where Our House came from. Do you remember when we first...
Yeah.
We did. You do?
Yeah. I was like, well, this has to be our song because you wanted to call it Our House. And I said, well, there's the Our House. It's like I can't hear the phrase Our House. It's like one of those things and I just start singing the song.
It's like, remember the Encore song game? Like what other songs, can you think of any other songs that say Our House in them?
Probably. Right now?
I know. Shoot. That's how the game is. It's high pressure.
I know, but I can't do it on a podcast.
Dang it. Got nothing.
Yeah.
I can sing This Is Your House.
Oh.
This is your house.
Oh, is that
I know
Brooklyn
a lot of
Tab?
Christian. Yes.
Brooklyn
yes.
Tab, yeah.
I love Brooklyn Tab.
Oh, my gosh.
The Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir.
Yeah, no,
We're pretty close to having the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir.
Are we?
Our choir is going to be like that in no time.
Hey, get out of the way, Carol Cimbalo.
Hey.
Just kidding. Don't tell her I said that. The Brooklyn Tab is a legend.
It's a legend.
It is. It's epic. So much great music came out of
Amazing.
the Brooklyn Tab. So anyway, no, our choir sounds great.
The choir does sound great.
Big shout out to Cheryl McWilliams, Jesse Ekholm, Lucy. There's so many great people that are helping learn parts and teach parts. And Cheryl's been doing a great job of doing the vocal exercises.
On 3. 1, 2, 3.
And it's great to see new people still. New people are coming out. We need guys.
You know what she's doing great at?
What?
Vocal exercises.
That's true.
She's doing a great job of vocal exercises.
She is teaching us vocal. We need to do that. Step it up.
I know.
So I'm not doing it. Oh, my gosh. You were doing them when we were filming yesterday. You were doing red letter, yellow letter.
Because I had to say
Red
words
letter,
in German.
You did. You were speaking German.
My mouth doesn't even move
I will
to
say
pronounce
this.
that correctly.
I didn't think there could be anything as hot as when you speak Spanish, but then I heard you speak German, and I'm like, my baby's getting the Rosetta Stone for Christmas. Because I like you bilingual. Let me just tell you.
Wow.
Like 9-lingual.
I'm going to bring back Duolingo.
Yeah.
Bringing it back. We have multiple kids in our house doing Duolingo.
Yeah.
I was doing it for a while, but it's just
What
too boring.
What language?
I was just doing Spanish.
Oh.
But
like, what do you even need it for Spanish? You already know Spanish.
I know, but I think that's probably why I was doing it, because I was like, this is fun. I can beat this game. Like, I'm just going to win, no matter what.
Do is win.
Yep.
Well, Finn's doing Dutch.
Yeah, or Danish or
Yeah,
Dutch.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Messer's doing
Spanish.
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Good. It's important.
multilingual house.
Really, probably we should be learning like Russian and Chinese.
Wow. I do not receive that.
Well, now that Trump's in office, we probably don't need to, but I'm just saying, like, we were headed that direction for a while. Seemed like Chinese was definitely going to be taught as a first language.
Here's something that I would like to talk about on the podcast.
What do you got? Hit me.
This is something that has been like driving me a little bit crazy and is like a matter of etiquette.
Okay.
And I want to talk about it because I want to see what your thoughts are on it.
Oh.
And I also want to hear from listeners as far as like, am I missing something? Is just the new way? Or do we need to like come up with some like better etiquette when it comes to using our phones?
Okay.
So listeners, if you have any feedback, info@hpc.church.
You've got mail.
Shoot it over to me, or if you feel the same way, because I feel like sometimes I'm like the only person. I'm like, am I that old school that these things bother me? But listen.
You're not really old school. It doesn't come to mind when I think of you.
Good.
Yeah. I'm not like Ashley's old school. Maybe about some things.
Do you feel like you're old school?
Yeah, I do.
How come?
I don't know. Like, I don't love a lot. Like, oh, well, I'm a worship leader and I like older worship.
I don't think that's true.
I mean, I don't like as much of like the new stuff. A lot of the new stuff.
If I put you out on that platform right now and I said sing one song and you could pick any worship song, it would be I'm Caught Up in Your Presence.
That's true.
Without a doubt. That's a new song.
That's true. That's probably true. Thank you, Corey Asbury.
No.
Nope.
Carnes.
Cody Carnes?
Cody Carnes.
Cody Carnes.
Yeah.
Who's Cody Asbury?
Corey Asbury. Reckless
Oh,
Love.
Cody.
Cody Asbury's Reckless Love.
And Corey Carnes. No, Cody Carnes and
Cody
Corey.
Carnes. Oh my gosh.
Corey
You're
and
confusing me.
Cordry?
No.
Corduroy?
Corey Asbury.
Is it
Cody Carnes.
Corduroy. Got it. Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
All that to say, Just saying.
What's old school about you that you think? What are you thinking that might make you old school or traditional or whatever it is?
I feel like some of like my thought processes.
Okay.
Maybe.
Give us an example. Or you could just get to the topic.
We're actually going to talk about one.
Yeah,
the
let's
second
do it.
half of this podcast is another reason why I think I have like an older mindset. So number one that I want to talk about is answering phones.
Okay.
When you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody. So this has happened like multiple times recently where I've been in a store, either asking somebody a question or cashing out, and the phone rings and they are like, oh, excuse me, and answer the phone. Here's the thing. If that's your policy, like you don't let any phone call go to voicemail, okay, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate the like, let me just pick it up and say, can you please hold on with a customer? Set it down till you're done talking. But that is not what happens. They pick up the phone call and prioritize whoever is on a phone call over who is right in front of them. So that's at stores, and that really bothers me.
Like the business phone is ringing?
Yes.
Okay.
The business. Oh,
Not
please,
like a cell phone.
Please do not even get me started on employees using their cell phones while they're working.
Okay.
Please do not.
Okay.
Because that's a whole nother topic. Again, that is definitely going to show my age.
I'm just going to hide mine here. It's sitting on the
It's
desk.
not that, but it's like the other day, I had to say excuse me like 3 times to somebody who was just in the aisle on their cell phone with their like uniform on. You're like, what is happening? How does this place not have a policy?
Yeah.
Like, put your phones away.
Put your phones away. Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't think that's old school.
So this is the other thing. So this is the other part to that. So it's in stores, but it's also when you're with people.
That's like a certain generation too, because I feel like the younger generation now, they don't even take phone call. They're not like they're not talking on the phone. They're like only texting.
Totally. Or FaceTiming.
FaceTiming, yeah.
But yes, a lot of texting. The younger generation is texting. They're not taking phone calls. They don't even hear their phone ring.
To me, that's almost worse than taking a phone call is when they're texting instead of talking to you.
Yes.
Because then it's like, oh, you could be like playing a game on there that you're just trying to wrap up, or you're trying to whatever
it is.
Post a selfie.
Anyway, so it's the prioritizing, but honestly, I'll include that in it. I'll include the texting, the younger generation, because I can be wicked guilty of this.
Yeah,
of
but
like
let's get
being
back
in
to
the
your
middle of a
original thing.
conversation, and like whatever happens on your cell phone is more important than who you're talking to.
Yeah,
who you're having a conversation with.
Right.
Like in the middle of a conversation with somebody or a meeting, a phone rings, and you do this sometimes, and it drives me crazy. Is you'll be like, I got to take this. Okay, I'll give grace for like the emergencies. There's always you're waiting for like a call from a doctor's office or something you've been trying to. You have a kid that's out of town and they're calling you. Okay, like I can appreciate those random things. I get it. That's like just part of life.
Well, it usually comes with an explanation afterward. You're like, oh, I was waiting for that.
Yes.
And it's been like 3 weeks for that phone call or something.
And there's like all the grace in the world for that stuff. But they're just like, hey, yeah, no, all right, nope, that's good. Okay, yep, let me call you back. I'm in a meeting. Yep, let me call you back. And hang up. It's like, just don't answer the phone. You don't have to answer the phone. Like, there's no reason the cell phone takes precedent over, it's not precedent, is it?
Yeah.
Takes precedent over the person. Priority over like who's sitting having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Like in real life. And I don't know if that's like an old thing where it was like because you only had phones on the wall and whenever the phone rang, it had to be something important. But it is not something important every time the phone rings.
No.
It's not. And I just feel like it's a common courtesy to not answer your phone while you are talking to somebody else, like having a conversation.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's so like devaluing to the person that you're talking to, saying whatever this is, like you're not important as who's calling me right now.
Right.
And a lot of times it's just you're answering your spam calls. You're answering phone calls you don't even know who's calling.
Yeah.
That's what voicemail is for. Let it go to voicemail.
It's fair.
Let it go to voicemail.
I don't think
Can you put your feet down? Because this is stressing me out.
I don't feel like I do it a lot. I feel like if I'm in a meeting and there's like a half a dozen people all in a meeting and everybody's talking and then it's like, oh, it's usually like somebody's calling because they're trying to get in the building or they need to be whatever. But I feel like the one-on-one things is pretty intolerable. I think if you're like in a room of people and you need to step out to take a phone call. But I do think that it comes from the idea of always the next thing is more important. It's probably rooted in the fast-pacedness of life that's like, okay, I'm in this, but if I can start something else instead of finish this, it just feels like it's sort of like an offshoot of that same root of like...
It is. Well, I think it happens too to multitaskers because multitaskers were like, well, I can do it all and I can answer this text and I can be in a conversation with you while I'm texting this person back or I'm getting this phone call. And I think It just needs to be like a little bit more like, just be more thoughtful.
Yeah,
like
present.
Be a little bit more intentional. Be a little bit more present with the people that you're with. I mean, I know sometimes you're in the middle of a conversation and you'll feel like the vibration in your pocket and you're like, okay, my phone, like I know somebody's texting me. You don't have to like grab your phone and check the text like in the middle of a conversation.
I don't get, my phone doesn't even vibrate. I have not had a ringer sound on my phone in probably 4 years, maybe longer. And I took the vibrate off a long time ago too. I literally miss almost every single phone call now unless it's face up in front of me or I feel it on my watch. Sometimes I'll check my watch because my watch will say who's calling and then I never even look at my phone.
Well, it's even like you'll be like in the middle of a text or something and somebody like asks you something and it's like, oh, okay, let me just finish this text. Okay, that's fine. You already started that. But it's like when you're in the middle of talking to somebody.
To do the other way.
And you ask to do the other way. And it's like, oh, okay, why don't you finish that text? It's like just feels so weird.
Yeah.
Like it feels like, well, what is that? Yeah. What is that? Does it bother you or is it just like a me thing?
No, I get it. I think it's different, a couple different things. I think if you're at a workplace, if you're at like, you're a customer in a business or like something at a restaurant and, you know, you are given the shaft in place of a phone call and you're like, I'm here to like bring business to your establishment right now. Like I'm facing you, ready to spend money here, and I get shafted for you to pick up a God knows who phone call. There's a little bit of that. And they used to do the please hold, you know, it's an answer and a quick please hold.
Of course.
Because that's courteous too.
Right.
But I think the other thing of just like conversation, yeah, I mean, maybe not quite as intolerable as the employee doing it to a customer, but
I think some of it is not. I mean, I know it makes me sound like grouchy and crotchety, but it's really not. It's just wanting people to like be more present with the people that are in front of them.
Yeah. Well, that part is the lost art, I think, because attention spans and everything are down. And
right. It's just like the moving too fast. Like just like moving so fast and not really having much regard for who's talking to you anyway, because you're kind of like, this thing's more important or I'm on to the next thing. And I just feel like it's, I don't know.
I felt myself
doesn't translate well for me.
I felt myself in the middle of conversations get like really convicted about just somebody random and like a quick thing, and my head is off to the next thing.
Yeah.
So my eyes start to be off to the next thing.
You definitely
and my
do that.
body language is off to the next thing, and it's like one rope holding me there, and I keep tugging on it. And I felt convicted about it before, and I have actually felt like the Lord like shift my attention and be like, look this person in the eyes. And sometimes if you go back and look somebody in the eyes, it's almost like intense. That's usually me faking it.
I know,
that
that's
face
what
you're
I'm
making
doing.
right now, that's me faking it. That's why I'm glad this is not a video podcast, because Ashley's giving away all the secrets. No, if I turn, because then if you're looking somebody in the eye, it's like you have to listen to them. You have to like pay attention. And I feel like sometimes that can be hard to do. And then sometimes that's too intense because you're like, oh, stop looking me like directly in the eye, like you're looking right into my soul or whatever. Because other people do that and it feels a little weird sometimes too. Yeah. So you're like, no, look over there, but still talk to me.
Ew, creepy.
Ew.
Anyway.
Yeah, listen,
I mean,
listeners, look people in the eye and talk to them.
You were just saying recently about...
Don't answer your phone. And phones are still going off in church. My Lord and God. We were just at a funeral. We were just at a funeral this last weekend. And
I know, Zachary,
in the middle
because
of like
everybody at that
moment.
funeral was over a certain age range.
Yeah.
And so you could expect that lots of phones were going to be going off.
Oh, man. Not just
the
going off.
age range that has cell phones on sound.
Like
still.
the highest volume sound, the highest volume. And it's
We're not
usually
calling anything out, but you might know.
And it's usually playing some like 80s pop song.
Or a Christian song. A K-Love song.
If you're lucky.
I don't even know how you can still get those rings. Like I remember the old, like
I
remember like 20 years
through
ago,
them and it was like $3 to buy them.
Yeah, you like pick the
Which
song.
ones did you have? I think I had your ring for a long time. Was You Shook Me All Night Long?
No, that was my ring.
That was mine for you.
No, babe, that was mine for you.
Oh, that was yours for me?
Yeah. No, I had. No. You're right.
Okay.
Mine was.
Pour some sugar on me. That's great. I was going to say, because I remember hearing that thing go off all the time. Yeah, on the old, it wasn't a Nokia, but you had that green slider.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I think it was like a Kyocera or something.
Oh, jeez.
Terrible.
Oh, boy. We've come a long way.
The good old days. Anyway, so that's old school thought number one.
Number one.
The second thing is a 4-letter word. A 4-letter word that I wanted to talk about today.
I like this. I like it when you swear.
When I say words like work.
Work. Watch me
W-O-R-K.
Work. Okay.
I wanted to talk about work today.
All right, what do you got?
I have a few different things that I'm thinking, but one is the negative connotation that comes with work. And I feel like when people talk about work, it always has like, oh, I got to go to work. Or, oh, that's going to be so much work. Or, I don't really want to do that or work on that relationship because it's too much work. Like all those kind of things. And something I've just been like tossing around the last like couple months in my own mind is, why does work have such a bad stigma associated with work?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think that perspective is the byproduct of like sin. And if you go back, if you do a history, the idea is that there was work before there was sin.
Like in the garden?
Yeah, like the idea of having dominion over the earth and like the garden, all this stuff. There were
caring
things,
for the earth, yeah.
There were things that were work, but work wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because there was no bad thing.
I mean, naming like thousands of animals sounds like a lot of work.
Sounds like a lot of work, right? But again, it wasn't by the sweat of their brow.
Yeah.
It wasn't until they were kicked out of the garden that we're told, okay, now what? The ground is going to be hard, right? You're going to work, but it's going to be a bad thing. And your relationship, even your marriage is going to be work, and that work is going to be hard. It's going to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like that kind of work you don't want to do. But again, we are called, I'll say, back to the garden. We're called back to understand that we get to work. It's
right.
like a blessing. And even the work that we do on our marriage, it's not for the sake of striving or toil. It's for the sake of the byproduct, which is Eden.
Right.
You know? So whatever work we do, we get to choose as our perspective that I only have to work because of sin, or I get to work because that's why God put me on this earth.
Yeah. I know that the thought isn't like the Lord put us on the earth to work. That's not like why the Lord put us on the earth. But that's a big portion of like what we are called to do.
Yeah.
And whether it's working for the kingdom, working so your family is like cared for because you're called to like care for your spouse and the kids that you've had, or I just feel like a lot of times if we keep that like negative perspective every day when we have to go to work, or like I feel like it just puts this like dark cloud and kind of gives us like just a negative mindset for everything we go to do. But it's like you see all these scriptures that are like everything you do unto the glory of God, or like everything you do with excellence as unto the glory of God. But it's like we all know these scripture verses, but we don't actually do that. Like, I mean, not even close. It's like we don't want to do anything for the glory of God. It's like everything's done kind of like haphazardly, not with our whole heart, kind of like with like grumbling and complaining. And we're all human. Like, I get that. I understand the days where it's like, if I have to look at another basket of laundry, I'm going to like lose my mind. Like, I get that. But you have to like, every time you get into those modes of like feeling like negative or frustrated, or I just like don't want to do this, I don't want to go to work today. Everybody has those feelings, but you have to like reframe it. You have to be intentional to like reframe it as to like why you're doing what you're doing. And the purpose with which you're going to work that day.
Absolutely.
It's like you have to go with like goals. You have to be able to like establish purpose and goals as to what you're doing, or that's just miserable.
Oh, yeah, otherwise you will grow to hate everything.
Everything.
Like no matter what. Because you know those people, we all know those people, and they like hate their job. But it's almost like you don't just hate your job, you hate the idea of a job. So it's like there is no real dream job.
Or you think there is, but it lasts for like 5 minutes, and then it's like not your dream job anymore.
No, because then you realize, oh wait, this actually is work too. Everybody's heard those statistics about when you retire, you like statistically die faster.
Yeah.
And then you also have heard the stats, maybe these ones are probably not as widespread, but people who win the lottery end up spiraling.
Yeah.
And many of them end up committing suicide and that sort of thing. Pretty sad. But you wonder, I've always associated it with like, oh, now you have this life of like luxury and abundance and you kind of like overdo good things and you're always looking for another high. It's like you're living in this life of excess. But I also wonder how much of it has to do with you're like vacating the blessing of working. You lose the value of like what it means to have value.
Yeah.
Because now all your value has shifted to wealth and material things and whatever. I wonder sometimes if that's why when you do know a lot of times people of means, they struggle with things like that because we are designed to occupy a position. And when we no longer have to do that, I think we start to spiral.
Right.
As human beings, I think we start to spiral.
Well, that's why I think we've talked about on here before. You and I had watched some sort of, I think it was a documentary or something where it was like the word retirement doesn't even exist in certain cultures.
Yeah, right.
Like there's not even a word for it because they don't retire.
No, they just do something different.
They do something different. Exactly. It's like, okay, you might have been doing this for a while, but now you're going to do this because you always have purpose.
Right.
You know, well, it's like the if I'm not dead, then God's not done. Whatever that's like.
Yeah.
If I'm not dead, then you're not done.
Yeah.
If you are a Christian, you have to believe that if you are still breathing on this earth, is because the Lord has a calling on you and a purpose for your life.
Right.
So whatever that is, like, what are you working toward? And it's like you have the classic. I love all the classic like proverbs about work. See,
they're pretty brutal. They're pretty savage. Nobody's reading those.
They're so good.
Millennials aren't reading those.
Listen to this one, Proverbs 12:11. Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense.
Hey.
Do you like that one?
I do.
Work their land will have abundant food, and those who chase fantasies have no sense.
I think Dave Ramsey would like that one.
13:4. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied.
I like the one that's like the
Look to the ant, you sluggard.
No, I like the one that's like the one who works will eat in abundance, and the lazy one will die. It's just
yeah, this one is diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor.
Forced labor. Hey, we got a lot of people that aren't going to like that.
You'll like this one. All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk only leads to poverty.
Yikes.
I mean, there's just
doesn't get any
so
more plain
many.
than that.
It doesn't get any more plain. So what stops us from working?
This is a good question before we get to the answer, because I think a lot of generationally, I think there's a breakdown here where you have like boomers and people who have adult age kids. And there's like this constant tension between like, go get a job. It's like you want this younger generation to go work.
Yeah.
And you have boomers and builders in like this generation that their whole life.
Wait, when you're saying this generation, what do you mean?
The generation of boomers and builders.
Oh.
Like our
the
parents'
workers,
age. Yeah, the workers.
Okay.
The ones who built, like what we have now.
Yep.
And you have this group, but they associated maybe arguably too much value on the actual job part of the work, right?
Yes.
So it was like you existed to work and everything else orbited around that work in a lot of regard. Okay, now, as we always know, generations swing from one to the next.
Yep.
And so this next set of generations, if I can say it's like a cluster of generations, like from our age down, they are pushing against that. And so it's like, how much can I not work? How much can I get away without working? How many student loans can I take out? How long can I defer those student loans before I have to pay them off?
Or never pay back.
How long do I have to wait without paying anything before they just go away?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, in a sense, I don't want to just blanket that, because I know that there are like really awesome, hardworking people who are dealing with a lot of debt.
Right,
and,
I get it. Yeah.
And honestly, let's face it, college is a scam, like a lot of people.
Let's just say this. If anybody offered to pay off my student loans after I'd gotten them, I would
you
have been
have
like,
taken them up on it?
Maybe that's fine.
Like I will
Nobody
work,
offered, though.
I will work for something else.
Nobody offered.
Yeah. I did. I just didn't have the money to pay them. So I think that we've got to understand from one generation to the next, if you are in that boomer builder, if you're a grandparent right now, let's say that. If you're a grandparent right now and you're looking at your kids or grandkids and wanting them to demonstrate some sort of work ethic, understand why they're not. Because it's possible that previous generations did too much. And so now we're trying to back. I know a lot of them would say, no, we did not do that too much. We did not work too hard.
Yeah.
We did not prioritize work. But I'm just saying what it looks like from this other, because we're kind of on a threshold.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I've seen I've read reports before. It's well, because this current generation, it's they want to do things with a purpose. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There has to have a great purpose behind it. And I can appreciate that. I can understand that, not wanting to waste your life, just clocking in and clocking out. But it should never be clocking in and clocking out. What are you working towards? Are you working towards a home? Are you working towards getting student loans paid off? There's always something that you need to accomplish. Mm-hmm. To me. That's kind of how I see it. It's where you're trying to create order within your family. You're trying to get married. You don't want to be in debt. All of these things.
Yeah, I think
financial freedom for your family.
But the goal thing is really good. The goal thing is really good because I think that otherwise you're not really working towards anything or for anything. Even if your goal is I want to take my family to Disney this year, or I want to not just be able to pay my one kid's tuition, I want to sponsor another kid at King's Academy to go to school or something like that.
Yeah.
You have a goal. Maybe the Lord put something on your heart. I know for myself, and we're all wired differently, but the idea of taking on side jobs, the goal was just to have more breathing room. Because when I met you, when we got married, it was the first time in my life that I was on this a real budget. There's money going, we have to pay all these different things. And when you look at how much money is left at the end of that, I'm you know what? I'm going to teach piano lessons a couple days a week so that there's breathing room on top of this, which you said there's never money that's not accounted for or allocated. But it's no, I want to be able to, walk through Harbor Freight and buy something for my trailer because I just, want it because it looks interesting and I think it'd be fun to have.
And that's where there's money in the miscellaneous budget.
Right. But I wanted more money in the miscellaneous budget or whatever it was. I don't remember. We didn't have any money when we got married. But it's I think the idea is that I was working towards a goal. And even if that goal was, okay, I want to take this elaborate vacation, or I want to do this addition on our house, or I want us to have 2 cars instead of 1. I've picked up side work. You've always worked 2 jobs for as long as I've known you. And now you probably are closer to 3. And so I think that now working, it's kind of I don't have to survive a side job. I don't need a side job to survive. But we have 4 kids in private school. Mm-hmm. So part of the goal is, okay, we don't want to have 4 kids in private school and it mean that we can never take a vacation.
Right.
Or that we have to have 1 car. So we're both going to work, and we're both going to work more than 1 job.
Well, we're also, the Bible tells us not to become a burden to somebody else either. Uh-huh. So I think we make a lot of choices. And as parents, we made choices when we had 4 kids.
Okay.
Some people chose to have 1 kid, 2 kids, whatever, and a lot of it had nothing to do with finances.
Some people chose to have 7.
Some people chose to have none or couldn't have kids, whatever. It's not. It's not really about that. It's just saying everybody has their situation that they have to handle and figure out what's best for their individual self, what's best for their family unit.
And it has to include what your convictions are. So if your conviction is, I really need to have my kids in private school.
Absolutely.
Then guess what? That conviction will also come with strategy for a means to that end where you are not a burden on somebody else.
Right.
In other words, it's not I know my kid or my grandkid is supposed to be in private school, but I am going to rely 100% on someone else footing that bill.
Right.
Or 50% on someone else footing that bill. Or 75% or whatever it is.
And that could be anything. That could be this is the town I want to live in. That's great.
Right.
You have your heart set on that town? Absolutely. If you feel that's where the Lord wants to plant your family, go for it.
I thought you were going to say, go fund yourself.
But
we need Karen
go
LaPlante.
fund yourself.
That was a T-shirt that came out after the whole GoFundMe thing. And Karen LaPlante was the only one that wore it around. I was really proud.
Okay,
she wore it to church. It was hot pink.
It
was hot pink and it said, go fund yourself.
It was not a T-shirt that came out. It was a T-shirt that Karen LaPlante made on her own because you said, go fund yourself because you were so mad at the GoFundMes forever ago when they first started coming out.
Somehow it was a sermon point.
But that was 13 years ago at this point. But it was still very funny.
All I know is
Karen... Maybe John made some shirts and maybe Karen bought that shirt.
I think that's what it was.
Oh my gosh.
They were doing Teespring where you could just get them. You could just order them online. Oh my gosh. Anyway, she earned irrevocable brownie points.
And she wore that. Go fund yourself.
To church.
Yep.
It's the best.
It was the best.
She's the best.
It was awesome. And
anyway.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on GoFund? You said go fund yourself all those years ago. Has your thoughts or your heart changed on the GoFundMes or the fundraising things and all of that?
That's a good point. So I will say this. I believe, and this just came up in our elders meeting, I believe in having all things in common. Mike O'Brien, Pastor Mike, did an awesome job of talking about how what we give and our tithes and our offerings, it should be from this place of having all things in common and that we're sharing what we have generously, right? And laying it at the apostles' feet.
And that's part of the church.
And trusting that the church is distributing these things as necessary, not knowing where they all go all the time, but like this is just part of being in a faith community. And I believe that while we haven't all sold our houses and moved into the mall together because we're already a borderline, shady in the town's eyes. So I think that would really put them over the edge. But I do think that there's a way to have things in common, and it is living a life where you say, okay, there's an exorbitant need. There is an astronomical financial burden that's come on a family in our church. We're all going to pitch in and help out. Our church now, because people have been generous in their giving, our church can pitch in and do something significant when it comes to somebody's health issue that came up, or it comes to somebody's house fire, or it comes to somebody's car accident or something. And so being able to do that has been just an enormous blessing. But it requires living your life that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't think, and the beautiful thing is, a lot of those situations, those people never asked.
Yeah.
I remember places where we've been able to buy a vehicle for somebody or do something for a situation, and it's been like people that we're not asking or expecting because they didn't want to be a burden to anybody, but we knew the need.
Right.
And so to me, and again, somebody that can't fill their oil tank or whatever, and they reach out to the church.
Well, that's the thing. Even being a burden to somebody does not mean that you never come on a hard time and need help.
Right.
That is not what that means.
It means positioning yourself or making choices, because some of these things happen and they're not choices. You can be legalistic about it and say, well, you should have had a 6-month emergency fund or whatever.
Right.
But it's like, let's face it, like unexpected things happen.
Yep.
That require the church to be the church, that require Christians to be Christians.
For sure.
But what you're talking about is when you are posturing yourself and making consistent lifestyle decisions that sustain you being a burden on everybody else.
Yeah. I think what's hard is that not everybody was taught any different. And you might be like listening to this and feeling like, oh gosh, like, oh, they're talking about me, or this is me. Like, I know that I've struggled with this. A lot of times it's not to the fault of your own, and you just never knew differently. You were never taught differently. You were raised in a house that operated like that. And so there are resources. There are like financial counselors. There are people in the church that offer to help people get straightened out on finances and what monies you need to bring into your home in order to like fulfill a budget, like all those things. There's help for that. And I remember being a kid going on missions trips and fundraising. Like I remember you'd write the letter at like 15 years old and you'd like send it to your like grandparents and your aunt and uncle. And it was like, I'm going on a missions trip to El Salvador and could use your help. Like all of that stuff, But then you were doing all the things you were doing.
Would you pray about partnering with me?
You were doing yard cleanups and you were doing car washes, and I was working at Friendly's bake sales, all this stuff. And I get that for like the teenager.
Yeah, because they're learning something.
Yes, then they're learning something. But then at some point, you have to be able to fund what you want to do in life.
Yep.
Like if there are things you want to do. I chose to go to...
what you feel like the Lord is calling you to do.
Yes, I chose to go to college. And I know some people choose ministry schools. Some people choose... There's kids in YWAM. There's kids doing all sorts of things. But to me, like once you're over 18 and these are choices as an adult, now you're 18, you're an adult. And you're making choices of what you want to do.
So you're talking about college.
Yes. Well, college or ministry. Like if you want to go into ministry school or... Which
is college-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so, but I think a lot of people would not say that's the same thing. But this is part of what you want to do. This is part what the Lord's called you to. So now you work towards that.
Yeah.
You work towards that. And it's not for other people to say like now, if the Lord puts that on somebody's heart and is like, hey, I want to sponsor you. Like, I feel like...
Which, by the way, I have experienced that. And
absolutely.
I feel, there's a part of me that's like, when you were saying about, like, if somebody walked up and offered to pay off my student loans, I would take them up on it.
Right.
Like, I can't have this conversation without saying there have been people that God put me on their heart, and they have considerably like sewn into my Bible school, like stuff I needed during Bible school, and their generosity or obedience to the Holy Spirit, whatever it was huge. Though it was never with me not working. I mean, I got a job as soon as I got here. I never made any money, like doing anything other than ministry. I've like never made, and now landscaping.
I know, but see, even that is like defeating the purpose of like going to work. Like, no, you had to work. You did have to work.
Yeah. But I didn't make money that I could like look back and say, look what I put away. It's like you're making money to live on. To do laundry.
I know, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Put gas in your car.
That's part of it. Yeah. It's just part of it. That's part of being 19 years old and 20 years old and being in school. You worked and you like figured it out and you saved up all summer and you worked a lot in the summer. You didn't get to hang out at the beach every single day and do whatever you wanted to all summer because we were working.
Oh,
because we had bills to pay and we had college loans to pay, and you know what I mean? And
Ben's going to have a hard time beeping all this out, all the times you say work. But yes, you're right. So I think it's different. And I said this before, maybe from the pulpit, maybe on this podcast, but I think that there's a generation that like, they like the idea of getting an important job, like of doing something valuable and meaningful with their life. The problem is that they're waiting for something valuable and meaningful to come along to give their life to. And I heard it said a long time ago, and I've stuck by it, that something is not valuable or meaningful until you give your life to it.
Yeah.
And when you give your life to it, it takes on the value and the meaning. And that is even true of like salvation. Salvation didn't mean anything to anybody until Jesus gave his life so that we could have it.
Right.
That was his job. You know what I'm saying? Like, in addition to like discipling his disciples and, teaching and all the other stuff that he did, like he had this job. And if he had not given his life for his job, it would not have taken on value. And I feel like that for us now, there are a lot of people who treat ministry, even since we've been talking about ministry, there are a lot of people who treat ministry like it's just a job and not something you give your life to. It's a clock in, clock out.
Right.
When you give your life to it, when you do it from heaven's perspective, when you do it saying, no, I'm here with a purpose, I'm going to make this bigger than just a clock in, clock out box check, you start to give your life to it and you realize, wait a minute, this thing is valuable. This thing has taken on significant meaning, and now my life in that place of employment is important. My gifts there are important.
Right.
The hours that I log doing that are important. They're important to my family because I'm providing for my family. They're important to my kids' education because maybe I'm paying for them to go to Christian school. They're important to my spouse so that we're sharing this load because we have a burden that we want to go on a couple of vacations or that we want to do Christmas big.
Or that we're in the house we want to be in, and so this is just part of it.
Right. And so I think keeping an eye on all those things is what gives that job value.
Yeah.
It's not just, I found this really important job, so now I can give my life to it. It's like, no, even that really important job will be bullcrap if you don't give your life to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had mentioned earlier about getting like a second job or a third job or things. And I think people hear that sometimes and can feel like, that sounds very overwhelming. I'm already like maxed out with what I can do, with what I have. I think there are so many different opportunities. Right now, with things so expensive, it's nearly impossible to have gone the last couple years with not increasing your income somewhere because the cost of living has just gone up across the board, way more than people's incomes increased, So when you're faced with situations like that, if you choose to not increase your income, then you're going to be upside down really fast.
Right.
So most of the time, seasons like this don't last forever. But there might be a period where it's like, hey, for this season, in order for us to stay above water, we need to think of another means of income.
Increase our revenue. Yeah.
Increase the income. And so be in prayer about that. Like the Lord has given you opportunities in different places to make that happen. And I know when I was, just doing like stupid things. I mean, I sold bags for like years when the kids were all very, very small.
And you made really good money doing it.
And people would have said to me like, well, I can't because I have kids. I understand. I had kids. I had 4 kids that were all under 4 years old.
And you risked leaving them home with me.
I would leave them home with you on evenings, a couple, like 2 evenings, sometimes 2 a week, but 4 or 5 at least a month. To go out and do parties to sell products. And
you made over $10,000 a year doing it.
doing that.
That was huge for us then.
That was huge for us.
I mean, 10 grand now doesn't seem like a ton of money.
It does to me.
I honestly would not let you do it for $10,000 a year right now. I wouldn't let you do it. But back then,
that was the season of life we were in.
Yes,
that's
that
the
was
season
a
we were in.
ton of money.
And you think about it, but that's the reality.
And it was the difference
of, like,
between us being able to put our kids in preschool.
And that was the kids going to private preschool. And that was what was important to me in that season of life. I wanted our 3 and 4-year-old in a Christian preschool. And that's what we chose to do in that season. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't convenient. It's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be home at night with my family. Mm-hmm. But you can only give so much. You only have so many hours in a day. And you don't sacrifice your family for it.
Right.
You know, it's like, but there are seasons where it's like, hey, we might have to go through a couple months of dad out every night or a couple nights a week or 4 or 5 nights a week because we need to get ahead of where we are right now.
Yeah.
Or we want to make sure that you can get into the school we want you to go to. Or, you know, there's a lot of life's decisions that we have to make. And it's hard and it's not always exactly ideal situation.
No. It's probably like when you were in school for law, like at Liberty, you probably weren't thinking, you know, when I'm a young mom, I'm going to be out a couple nights a week in random people's houses trying to sell them bags.
I was not thinking that.
That wasn't probably what
I was not thinking. I also was not thinking that I would just be in ministry after that either. Or
surprise.
And like not get paid for like
years. A
15
decade.
years.
Yeah.
But who knew?
Who knew? But here we are.
Here we are. And the Lord's provided. The Lord's always provided, but I feel like He's blessed the effort.
And another aspect of that is like, call it what it is, that like having a number of kids, take responsibility and ownership for the fact that you have kids. Maybe 1, maybe 4, maybe whatever. Maybe you have a blended family with kids from both sides. These are all decisions.
Yep.
Right? They're all decisions. Now, with that said, we were driving through Amish country. We were in Lancaster, PA this last week. You see all these Amish houses and they have like 60 feet of clothesline running between the barn and the house. Yeah. And it's got, you know, by the clothes on it, you'd think they had like 15 kids, and some of them might. What's so crazy is like those people see kids as a blessing. Why? Because kids take ownership in the work.
Yeah.
Because kids are working the fields. They're tending to the lambs and, you know, the pigs and the cows and whatever else. I don't know if they eat pork or not, but
watch the lamb.
They're doing all of that stuff. And I feel like if we looked at our kids that way, we would see, okay, everything's an investment in the legacy that's going forward.
Right.
In the land or the whatever. It's harder, I think, when we don't wake up and look out your window and see the field that you're leaving to generations to come. But what you're doing is no different, or what we should be doing is no different.
Yeah.
So, good.
We talked a lot about it. I could talk more, but we probably should let everybody go.
Yeah, we're looking at another 2 episodes here.
No, we're not. Don't do it.
All right, on that note, we're out of here.
We're out of here. Our house, friends, and family, we'll see you next Friday on Our House.
This is Messer. And I'm Willa. This is Our House from A to Z. Thanks for coming over.
Well, isn't that special?
Am I in danger? Yeah.